It's been 1 year since the release of the last film in the Skywalker saga, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. So I thought today we'd go back and look at the film a year later. It's been a year. It's now available on Disney Plus on Blu-ray and 4K and all that stuff. And I'm pretty sure that most of you, if not all of you, have seen this film probably multiple times by now. And I recently rewatched it. And I wanted to give my thoughts on not just the state of Star Wars a year later, but also, does the movie hold up? Did it get better? Did it get worse? Are there things that we appreciate now that we didn't appreciate back then? Have a discussion about how we feel about the film now. And of course, leave a comment down below and let me know what you think if you've seen the movie recently again. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you like it more than you did last year? Do you dislike it more? I'm just curious because we as human beings, our opinions do change from time to time. Now, joining me to discuss this for the first time ever here on Geekdom 101, please welcome from RK Outpost. I'm just going to call you Real Deal Ryan, bro, because you're a real deal motherfucker.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. It's ironic. The way that I found your channel was actually a retrospective that you did with Dash in the aftermath of The Last Jedi. When The Last Jedi released and you guys got together, I'm sure you remember that. You did an 2-hour podcast about what had just happened with The Last Jedi. So it's an honor to be on with you for this.
I appreciate it, bro. And I look, I'm going to stand by it. I was one of the first guys to ever trash that movie. Everyone was praising it. Collider, all the reviewers. Oh, it's a very bold and ambitious. I hated this so much, bro. It's a very bold, ambitious movie. Rian Johnson took this film in different directions. And then, of course, the nerd crew over at Red Letter Media completely clowned them to the point where, they embarrassed those dudes. But the point I'm trying to make is, all these reviewers were saying it was a great movie before you and I even saw it after the pre-screenings. And then after I went to go see it, it just hurt. And did the video with Dash. But then we had Rise of Skywalker, right, which is the topic of today's video. And going into Rise of Skywalker, I want to ask you a question before we even talk about any of this. Going into this film, we had all the spoilers. Now, for a while, I was very skeptical. When Jedi Pax's was releasing those leaks, I was covering them, but I thought they were fake. I was like, nah, this can't be real. It can't be this bad. And then when the trailer came out and we saw Rey holding the dagger, I was like, oh no.
That was it. That was the moment.
No, yes. I was like, no, they can't. So a lot of people actually thought that Abrams was going to come in and do a good job and kind of, save the trilogy. But at the same time, Abrams is pretty good at doing chapter 1, but he's not very good at doing chapter 2. I've noticed that the only time he's ever really done a good sequel is probably Mission Impossible 3. I would say that's a good movie. But besides that, my question to you is, going into the movie, how did the spoilers affect your initial viewing of the film?
Well, I was looking for it all the way because, like you said, the Jedi Pax's leaks, I cover them in depth. I went on a lot of streams to talk about it. And I don't know if we've ever had any leaks that were quite that on point, to the point where we were getting leaks for deleted scenes. Yep. Right? We were getting leaks for things that happened before with Kylo Ren and that monster in the middle of the lake that he was supposed to go to. We got more details than we actually got in the final cut of the movie from Jedi Pax's. And for me, I am someone, we talked about it a little bit before. When Disney bought Star Wars in 2012, as someone who had been reading the expanded universe for years and devoted so much of my time and energy into hundreds of books and comics and video games, all of that stuff, I thought that that's the direction Disney was going to go. And then in 2014, when they decanonized, I was pretty pissed off, honestly. And so when I went into Force Awakens, I was one of the maybe 5 to 10% of people that when they viewed it, I didn't like Force Awakens.
Right.
I thought it was a shallow world. I thought it was a mystery box. I didn't think anything was explained. I thought that in a smaller way than what we saw in Last Jedi with Luke Skywalker's character, I thought they did Harrison Ford or Han Solo so dirty. They made the guy a failure, a deadbeat dad, a failed husband. They assassinated him. They brought him back to who he was at the beginning of Episode 4. So to me, I didn't like Force Awakens. Last Jedi came around. I was in a different spot. I didn't think it was going to be good. I thought it was going to be bad. And I was shocked when everyone else hated it too, or at least about half the Star Wars fandom seemingly. Going into Rise of Skywalker, I wasn't invested. I didn't really think it was going to be good, but I was interested to see what J.J. Abrams was going to do because Rian Johnson left him nothing and nowhere to go. And seeing those spoilers, I'm just like with a notepad, right? Just seeing what is going to happen. And I don't think the experience would have been changed that much at all. I still think that I guess I would say this. Without the spoilers, I could have gone in and seen the movie and maybe been a little more distracted by what was going on, or maybe got a little bit excited about something that went on, rather than knowing what was happening and just kind of laughing at it because I knew the plan all along. Maybe my first viewing was impacted, but I think eventually I still would have thought that it was an absolute garbage heap of a movie. And right. that I said this before, Last Jedi did more to harm Star Wars, even though Rise of Skywalker does its job between Palpatine and destroying Anakin's legacy and all of these things. But I think Rise of Skywalker, when you're looking at not a Star Wars movie, just structurally, it might be a worse standalone movie than The Last Jedi, which is saying something.
No, I totally agree with you. There's editing problems, there's pacing problems. Like, it's one thing that's very difficult to explain to people because a lot of folks just watch movies and don't really think about things on a deeper level, and that's fine. But even if you just do that, you can tell that the movie feels off. The movie just feels, it feels like there's, and I've said this before, there's too much movie and not enough movie. Like, there's too much plot, there's too many fetch quests in this film, but also there's not enough substance. So it's like they have, it's almost like if you were to divide the film up and add some more substance to these, it could have been, and that's one thing I want to talk about, is that this could have actually been good. There was potential. There were scenes, individual scenes in this film that I love. There were performances, because the actors aren't to blame for this. They did the best they could. There were performances and moments in the film that I thought could have worked if they had been executed better. There were ideas that were good, but when you put it together, right, into a movie, when you take these little good ideas or even okay ideas and put them together into a movie, if it's not connected right, if the connective tissue's not there, it falls apart, point blank. And that's a metaphor for not just the movie, but the entire sequel trilogy. The reason why I asked you about the spoilers is because when I saw the movie going into it, like you said, the whole thing was spoiled. I feel like had I gone into this movie and not known what was going to happen, I probably would have hated it even more. This is why. Like, okay, let me explain, because this is going to be a weird emotional roller coaster here. With Last Jedi, I had no idea what was going to happen. I avoided spoilers, and then when that movie ended, I walked out pissed. With this movie, it was completely different. With this movie, we knew what was going to happen. We even had clips that leaked before the movie came out, like footage. But watching the film in theaters, I had this weird stomach pain and I didn't understand what it was. And so what I was doing was I was watching the film and I was hoping in the back of my head, please be better than what we read. Please be better than what we found out. Please execute these ideas as good as possible. And throughout the entire movie, I mean, from beginning to end, I had this weird feeling in my stomach, right? And it's taken me a year to figure this out, by the way, just so you know. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. Because I've never felt this way about a film before. Like, I've gone to go see so many movies in my life, and I've never felt this way about a film before. And I figured out what it was, bro. I think it was the fact that I knew what was going to happen before the movie came out, that we had the entire spoiler. It softened the blow for how much it was going to suck, in a way. Like, it softened the blow for how much the film itself was going to be a letdown, but it created another problem. And I realized exactly what it was as recently. I'm going to tell you what it was. I was in mourning, bro. I was in mourning as I'm watching the film. And this is kind of a deep psychological thing here, but as I'm watching the film, I realized it's not that the movie is bad or any of that stuff. We've already talked, you and I have talked about this on our channels for a year. It's not even that. It's the fact that this is it. This is the fabled episode 9. This is the final film in the 9-episode arc. What we thought of as kids, like what would happen after Jedi, What would be episode 7, 8, and 9? What would happen to the characters after the death of the Emperor? Like, all this stuff that we had in our heads and these fantasies and the EU and even not the EU, like, whatever. And this is what we got. And as I'm watching the film, I am mourning my childhood. I am mourning, not that it ruined my childhood, because I hate people say that shit, but I'm mourning sort of the idea of what this could have been. What this could have been. Based on just like, I like Force Awakens, but you know, based on the ideas they had and the characters they had, because you know, Carrie Fisher was alive for the first 2 films, and you know, they could have done something with these characters. And I was in mourning because I was realizing this is it. They're never gonna go back and be able to fix this forever until years, decades, centuries that we are dead off this planet somewhere else in the dirt. This is going to be episode 7, 8, and 9. This is what the sequel trilogy, the most hyped up. People have wanted to see this story since 1983. And this is what we got. And I'm just being honest with you, bro. Like, I felt very depressed. The movie is very depressing. Like, do you get where I'm coming from?
It's a culmination because I do know what you're saying, and I like that you said mourning, because that's the word. And when I watched The Last Jedi, I was in a different stage of grief than other Star Wars fans, right? Yes, because I was done. Like Force Awakens, I thought it was trash. I thought it was garbage. I couldn't believe so many people loved it, because to me it was so empty. So then Last Jedi, I was just like, I mean, this is going to be bad. There's nothing they're going to do to save it in my mind. So that it was at the stage where people started to be. But episode 9, there's still a semblance of hope, right? Because like you said, maybe it wouldn't be the leaks. Maybe it is something that would have some semblance of good, positive feeling that you could walk out of there with, but it wasn't. And you talked about how this movie, it was too much and too little. Imagine if, I don't think it would have really been that great, but imagine if they just stretched the premise of this movie out into 2 movies. What if they made this episode 8 and 9 and you threw in little parts of maybe finding Luke in there in different stages?
Could have been better.
There's definitely, it would have been better. There's definitely room to do that. Then you can see, you know, Palpatine, you still bringing back Palpatine is so stupid, but, you know, how Palpatine is growing things and how, you know, maybe they're starting to realize that they don't have a chance against this. And maybe it's more than like 15 minutes between major plot points happening that, you know, affect the galaxy. And maybe there's more than 10 minutes between hyperspace jumps to the other sides of the galaxy, things like that. Everything could be fixed if there was just more time. I don't think it would be a satisfying conclusion, but it would definitely leave a better taste in most people's mouths. And you talk about the hope we all had. I felt it too. When Disney bought Star Wars, I thought that I was going to get to see storylines from the EU continued on, right? And like you said, we'd all been asking about it. Mark Hamill got asked about sequels in the 80s, right after they got done with Jedi.
Forever.
He's been asked about it for forever. Everyone wanted to see that. And one thing that makes this so much different than the prequels, and one of the reasons that I think the prequels got a lot of shit from people, is because we knew where the story had to end up. So when you know how the story must end up, you know that it has to end up with Luke on Tatooine, with Anakin as Darth Vader.
It's a problem with all prequels, not just the Star Wars prequels. Prequelitis is a thing.
Yeah, because when you know that, you can write it in your head. And when you see something that doesn't meet your expectations, you might not like that. So that's one of the things that George Lucas was working against. Everyone had in their mind how they thought he should do it. And then when they didn't get that, they might not have liked it. With the sequels, your mind is open to anything. They had an advantage that they could do anything, but instead, the first movie, they played it completely safe.
Right.
The second movie, they did the complete opposite. They gave these people no direction. There was never a plan. And episode 9, they tried to fix everything all at once. And he did a poor job.
Right. And the problem is that the quote fixes were sort of like surface level bullshit to satisfy a certain subsect of Star Wars fans without really trying to fix the real problem, which, to be honest, may have been unfixable. But I feel like the script that came out from Colin Trevorrow, Duel of the Fates, I feel like that was a much better episode 9, in my opinion, especially as far as a sequel to Last Jedi. Because what made me laugh about Rise of Skywalker is that feeling of mourning that we're talking about that you felt already like with episode 7, I felt it with episode 8. But here's what's funny. The people who like Last Jedi, who I do have friends that like Last Jedi, and I do love them, even though I disagree with them, they felt this when they watched Rise of Skywalker. I had a friend of mine recently who loved Last Jedi, totally adored it, told me he couldn't even get through half of Rise of Skywalker. Because it's like Last Jedi may have been a failure for half the fan base, but I feel like Rise of Skywalker was a colossal failure for like 80%. Like if Last Jedi pissed off 50%, Rise of Skywalker pissed off the 80%, but I feel like the 50% that were pissed off at Last Jedi were already in Mourning, so it didn't bother them that much. Like, I wasn't emotionally angry when I left Rise of Skywalker. Last Jedi, I was. Rise of Skywalker happened, and I was just more depressed and sad. So when I watched it again on Disney Plus about 2 weeks ago, before we did this video, I felt that same sadness again. Dude, I cannot watch this movie without feeling sad. I mean, just from the opening crawl, you know, the voice of Palpatine echoes across the galaxy, and they revealed it in Fortnite, and it's like, you remember that, and it's like, dude, like, to this day, like, I feel really bad for the casual Star Wars fans, the ones that just watch the movies, because they have no idea what the hell's going on, dude. I've had people to this day ask me about, like, where the First Order came from, and they tried to explain it in episode 9 by saying that Palpatine was secretly he was the secret mastermind behind everything, which is a really, really simple cop-out, if you ask me. It was very lazy, if you ask me. And it's sad because I like Ian McDiarmid. I thought he was great in the movie. He's a great actor. The character, I'm a big fan of Palpatine, bro. I love that character. He was the best thing about the prequels, if you ask me. And yet, I don't even want to see him anymore. And that's not good because I love that character. I'm not a fanboy, though. When a character is dead and it serves the plot, Anakin turning good, bringing balance to the Force, like, okay, keep him dead. Like, I love the character, but keep him fucking dead. But instead they bring him back, and, you know, and the thing is that it's so, what irritates me is that there's so much good visualization in the film. It's a beautiful looking movie. Like, the Exegol is so creepy. Like, I love the creepy vibes of Exegol, that Exorcist, you know, this kind of vibe, you know, the cloning facilities. You know, I love Kylo Ren just fucking motherfuckers up. Like, and I also love, like, the fight between, one thing I do love about the film that is the creativity behind some of the scenes, like the fight between Rey and Kylo when they kept changing locations. That was great filmmaking, bro. The way that, like, they'd be on the ship and then the camera would turn, they'd be off the ship. Like, that was some beautiful cinematography. And I'm like, there's some great ideas here, bro, but
when you think about what they're doing with the Force and what that means for, like, everything else we've ever seen in Star Wars, it has some problems. But from how it looks, you're 100% right. J.J. Abrams makes beautiful movies.
Right. And it's like, this guy would have been a great, like, assistant director or something like that. But as far as, and the same thing goes for Rian Johnson when it comes to episode 8. When it comes to writing, I think is the problem. And you also got the guy from Batman v Superman writing this. So, and that movie had tons of plot holes as well. So you're gonna have issues. But okay,
I'm a fan of BVS Ultimate Cut. That's what I'll say.
Ultimate Cut is better. Ultimate Cut is better. But there's still weird things about these. That's a different video. But you get what I'm saying. But one thing we can agree upon is that BVS and Rise of Skywalker both have one fundamental similarity, and that is there's a lot of plot going on. There's a lot of shit going on in this movie. Maybe not so much BVS, but there's a lot of things going on. Like, I've had to watch BVS like 2 or 3 times to really understand everything because there's a lot of plot. But with this movie,
that's why that extra like 30 minutes from the Ultimate Edition is like so important.
Yes,
because it puts so much stuff into perspective, and you understand why some characters acted the way they did, which is really important.
Yeah, it made no sense otherwise. No, for this, it's like, okay, so for BVS, you've got maybe 2 or 3 thick plots. For this, you've got like 7 or 8 thin plots. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they have these things. They do things so quickly, and it is so dumb that so many things they put it on an artificial time crunch, right? They're like, we only got 16 hours to do this, to make you feel like, oh my God, look, we're in for a roll, we're in for a ride. We have to do this really quickly. But then the fact that they went to like 6 different systems in that 16 hours kind of throws hyperspace travel. It kind of throws a wrench in that, which I guess they already destroyed that in The Last Jedi anyway, so who cares? but they try to put you on an artificial clock to make you feel like it was important, and they put so many different things in here, and some of them were just to subvert your expectations, like when Rey blows up the ship and you think Chewie's dead,
Right.
but then you turn your head and 3 minutes later Chewie's actually alive.
Right.
You don't even get like time for that to breathe.
Not even an
to
hour.
be a fake death scene.
Right.
Like, you just get revealed that, oh no, he's actually fine. Don't worry, guys. We get told, like C-3PO, you think he's making some grand sacrifice, and in reality, you get told, like, well, actually, you know, R2 has a backup memory. You'll probably be fine. Okay, that has no meaning. There's so much going on with Rise of Skywalker that you said it best. They tried to please every aspect of the fan base, and
even the Reylos, brother. they got a kiss. They got a kiss, bro. I can't believe it.
A kiss of gratitude, in fact.
And by the way, I don't know if I ever told you, bro, but when I saw the movie in theaters, I remember when they were about to kiss, there were a bunch of teenage girls behind me, and they were like, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" And then when they kissed, they were like, "No!" So they were like anti-Reylo, bro. I couldn't believe it. Like, people did not like that kiss as much as they thought they were going to. Well, I'm sure some people did.
Yeah, so I didn't see it in a theater, which may have affected my thing.
That's right. I remember that. I remember what you did.
I made the decision. You know, Disney was grateful. I was grateful for them to provide me a special review copy that I didn't have to pay for. You know, and I distributed to maybe some other people. But
I remember that.
Yeah, so I did not go to the theater because I had made a decision I wasn't going to spend my money on that. So that may have affected how I felt about it as well, because I was just sitting in front of my computer in my chair eating pizza, laughing. But God, you know what you said about the Mourning, it makes sense. Like, I feel it too. And J.J. Abrams tried to make Last Jedi fans happy. He tried to make Reylos happy. He tried to make people that hated The Last Jedi happy. He tried to fix Luke Skywalker. He tried to show that Rey does training.
Right.
He tried to do all of these things, but didn't let it breathe. And it seemed so artificial. I think that was the real problem. None of it seemed planned because it wasn't. Ian McDiarmid, the reason they brought him on was because they had nothing else. They needed him. He even admitted that it was a surprise when J.J. Abrams reached out to him to ask if they'd do Episode 9.
Yep.
And they reached out to him when they needed to cut a trailer for Star Wars Celebration. They needed a reason to get people hyped up. And they were like, well, let's bring back Palpatine.
And they could have brought him back in a different way, like an actual clone or something like that. But instead they just, he had a secret base. And the whole thing was his idea. And it's like, goes against the entire prophecy of the Chosen One, which shits in the prequels and the original trilogy. And it devalues Vader's turn. I mean, you could sit there and say, well, he still turned and helped out his son. Yes, that's true. But it still devalues it. I'm going to tell you this, bro. You hit the nail on the head when you said the word artificial. I noticed some things watching it this time recently that I kind of analyzed more. Number one, if it wasn't for John Williams, there's a lot of scenes in that film that would not have had emotional impact. And I think that they were lucky to have John Williams. We were all lucky to have him alive to compose more Star Wars. Whether or not you like the sequel trilogy, the music is good. Now, I do think that the music in the sequel trilogy is the weakest out of the three trilogies. I think the prequels and the original have way better music. But it's still good music. And I think there are certain sequences here, like you said, that are done to artificially toy with our emotions. For example, the Luke Skywalker scene when he catches the lightsaber and he's like, a Jedi should never throw away his weapon. Like, basically saying, fuck you, Rian Johnson. That's basically what he said. And like the fact that he's like, I was wrong. And then when he lifts up the X-Wing and they play the same music from Empire Strikes Back, like, here we go. They're doing the nostalgia, the classic nostalgia bait that's become modern Star Wars. That's all it is, nostalgia bait. And so we as fans who grew up watching Empire Strikes Back 200 times as kids, we remember that freaking Yoda scene where he picks the X-Wing out of the swamp up we've seen it a million times. Same music. Mm-hmm. And like, same thing with the music. Again, the music is very important for Star Wars because the emotional weight of John Williams' music is very powerful. And there are so many scenes in this film that had it not been for the music, they would have fallen apart. So I noticed that. However, I also noticed there are other scenes that have almost no music, or at least very subtle music that where it's almost like I don't want to say he got lazy. That's not the right thing to say, but there's not much music in certain scenes, and thus that doesn't help. But like I think there's a lot of artificial emotion. There's a lot of artificial toying with the audience's emotion. Like you said, the Chewie stuff. That's very artificial. When Kylo Ren's like, Darth Vader was my grandfather. The Emperor is your grandfather. Like we're supposed to be like, oh shit, like this makes sense. Like, the rulers of the galaxy's children's children are now like the but you know what I'm saying? We're gonna say?
I totally agree with you. Like the music, the reason that John Williams' music is so good, it's obviously because he's incredibly talented. But like you said, when you hear that scene, you think of Yoda lifting up that X-wing. The reason that Star Wars music specifically speaks to us is because you get thrown immediately into that scene that you remember, whether it's from the OT or the prequels. The prequels has some incredible musical themes as well,
Yeah,
especially the the Obi-Wan Anakin fight.
Yeah, Battle of the Heroes. Dun,
yeah,
dun,
Battle of the Heroes.
Dun, 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 dun. That's great.
And
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
The reason that connects to you is because you're connecting to those characters. And the sequels, I don't know what Rey's theme is. I don't know.
That's one of the ones they got right, though.
Yeah, but you don't care enough about the characters to really have that music be that impactful to you.
Right.
And I think that's a part of it. So I don't know how much he got lazy or how much there's just not as much emotional resonance because artificial is basically corporate and Star Wars became corporate.
For
Even
sure.
the prequels where, George had complete control over that. It was him. It wasn't some mega corporation that was making all of these decisions. It wasn't some assembly line thing that was happening. It was just George. And what Disney did and what we knew they were going to do, they were going to corporatize Star Wars. So why not do that? Why not just make nostalgia bait? Why not take this thing, make it exciting for now, even if it lessens the impact of something from the original trilogy? We're seeing it right now. This is a little bit off topic, but with the plans for the ObiWans series on Disney Plus.
Yep.
We have heard from 3 people now, Kathleen Kennedy, Deborah Chow, who's directing it, and from Ewan McGregor, that there's going to be a rematch between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan.
Which I am very against. I'm going to do a whole video on that. I am very against that for a few reasons.
Yeah, and so some people are making some excuses like, well, maybe it's through a vision, whatever. If they actually do cross blades, if they actually do in this era, that it destroys canon and continuity, but they've done it before. But what it does and what they don't understand, in my mind, is it lessens the impact of when they meet in Episode 4 in A New Hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what they don't understand is that they are retroactively damaging their brand to give people like, ooh, cool, Hayden and Ewan, they get to fight again. Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. And
it's not even going to really even be Hayden. It's going to be a guy in a stunt suit, right?
Yeah. Well, probably, yeah. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of people that still love those things. That's why we love Star Wars. And it fools a lot of people, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of people that get fooled by the nostalgia. And even myself, even if I hate what I'm watching, like I see a stormtrooper or you hear a TIE fighter and the sounds of Star Wars, like, get you right away.
Always.
One of the most recent episodes of The Mandalorian when he uses the
Django
the seismic mine.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, that was awesome.
Right, that sound, boom.
Yeah,
that sound, the sounds of Star Wars grab you because you care about it.
Right.
Even little things like that, man, and it's working in a lot of ways, but I think it really cheapens the experience.
Yeah, they should have focused more on the story than anything else. Now, I wanted to ask you. Now looking at Rise of Skywalker now compared to a year ago, obviously you've seen it in better quality and all that. I just wanted to ask you, are there any scenes or any moments that you think are better now than they were a year ago? And are there any scenes that you think are worse? Is there anything about the film as far as your opinion goes that has changed in a year's time?
I don't think anything about my opinion has changed necessarily, like from watching it. I will say that once we got the movie rewritten, kind of, when we got the novelization, and then we get some art of the Rise of Skywalker, all these different things that provide amplifying information, you kind of realize that they didn't want to tell you how Palpatine survived. They didn't want to tell you anything. They didn't want to get any of those details, because that is one thing that I wanted them to show that we didn't get from the leaks. We did not get from the leaks why or how Palpatine was alive.
If you didn't read the novelization, you have no idea. To this dude, to this day, there's people who don't even know. They don't even know. There's people who don't even play Fortnite, who didn't even hear about the Fortnite. Like, they were like, when did that happen? Like, you know, when people don't even know about like the Battle of Jakku and Gallius Rax and the First Order being formed in the unknown region. People have no idea because Disney wanted to freaking milk it and take your money from the fucking books and video games, now realizing that the casual movie audience doesn't give a damn. They just want to know in the movie how it happened. And you can't just tell a story without filling in holes that have 6 other episodes.
Yes, that is the thing, and it was one of my criticisms of Rian Johnson's Star Wars, right? The Last Jedi. You can't bring in someone and let him do his own take on Star Wars when the previous 7 entries have been like a certain way. You know, you can't just do your take. It's not like an alternate universe Batman comic where someone gets a chance to do it. Star Wars is different. It's one constant continuity. So when you bring Palpatine back and provide no explanation of how he's alive, it's absolute BS, because there is not a single soul that got done watching Return of the Jedi and was like, I wonder how they're going to take care of Palpatine, though. You know, that's not a question anyone had. He was dead. And for them to bring him back and explain nothing about it, have one throwaway line from what's his name, from
the Pippin from Lord of the Rings, right? Yeah, cloners and Sith. Yeah, that's it. That's all we got.
Cloners, Sith magic, huh? Who knows?
Sith alchemy or whatever. Yeah.
Alchemy. Who knows? That's all we got from that, and that is shameful. If you're going to do something like that and bring a character back, you have to explain it. I was a big critic of them bringing Darth Maul back.
Me too. So was
TPW.
I.
Because to me, I actually watched a video. I forget who did it. It was about the death of Superman and how that storyline killed death in comics forever. And like the ramifications that had. Eventually it was like, well, I mean, if they killed and brought back Superman, so we might as well do it too. And then, you know, it's like hundreds of comic book characters have died and come back to life since then. To me, it's similar with Star Wars. If you kill someone and then you bring them back, that cheapens death, because now who can't live? We literally just saw Rey get resurrected by Kylo. So now who can't come back? Palpatine survives somehow. They're probably going to bring Mace Windu back at some point. You know, all of these things.
Ahsoka Tano's died like 3 times. Boba Fett. Yeah, there's a lot of them, bro, where we thought they were dead, but they really weren't dead or whatever. One thing I will tell you, though, is the Palpatine transferring his body into, like, another body. That's a lot of that stuff they got from the EU, right? But I feel like... 100%. Right, and I was going to ask you about your feelings on that, because it's like... My feelings are, I'm happy that they incorporated that Force ability into this franchise. However, I feel like it cheapens. It's a cheap way to do it. Like, I think, I'm conflicted here, because the Force ability is cool, but the problem with Palpatine specifically is that the prophecy said that the Chosen One would be the one to take him out, and that means that no matter how much Sith alchemy there is out there, no matter how many failed clones he has, Anakin's the guy to take him out. And that's what happened at the end of Episode 6. The real end of Star Wars was that movie. And yet, in this, and that's my problem with it, is more so, it's not so much about Palpatine coming back, it's more so how it affects the entire story. Not so much the character himself, but the entire story has now been, like, jolted. Like, now, dude, it's like people said, is it even the Skywalker saga anymore? It's the Palpatine saga. He rose to power in the first 3, you know, not the first 3 movies, but the first 3 like episodes. Then he's in power, then he falls, and he comes back, but he was always there. It's like the Palpatine story more than the Skywalker story.
And he was defeated by a Palpatine.
Right! Who then said she was a Skywalker?
Yeah, I was using that meme, like right after the movie came out. I said the end of I said the Rise of Palpatine. I said that probably 100 times in videos.
Hell yeah.
But because it really is, and it does cheapen at Anakin's sacrifice. He's no longer the chosen one. Now, an important thing about where they took it from the EU, I cannot stand it. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear or not.
No, you do. I've been cursing like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, you can. Go
okay, all right. I don't fucking like it when they do this. I can't stand it when they take stuff from the expanded universe because they threw it away. I thought that they were going to use this 30 years of lore and history and all of these things, the rules of the Star Wars universe that were developed, and build off of that. You could have had such a deep and rich lore behind your Disney Star Wars, but no, you threw it away. Fine. That's upsetting to me. But if you're going to throw it away, leave it there. Don't pick it out of the trash heap and like change it and present it as your own. What they did with Palpatine was taken from Dark Empire. In Dark Empire, Palpatine basically does essence transfer,
which is awesome,
to a clone, right? To a clone, and essence transfers of unique. It's cool as fuck. Darth Bane does it as well, or he tries to. Not super successful in the Darth Bane trilogy, but this, you have to remember that Dark Empire was written before the prequels. They wanted to have some guy run around in Darth Vader armor for that comic book. And George Lucas said, no, use Palpatine instead. You can have a clone of Palpatine. Right. Like George Lucas gave permission for them to do that. But it was before he had written and fully realized the prequels. It was before
the Chosen One prophecy. Exactly. Yeah, that's what people have to understand. Is if you watch, and that's one thing that we should probably talk about in a separate video, is if you watch the original trilogy without the prequels and sequels, just those 3 films, it has been completely recontextualized. Because we didn't know what the Clone Wars were. We didn't know about the prophecy. There was no prophecy. It was never brought up in those original 3 films. We didn't know who Qui-Gon Jinn was. Not even a single mention of him. So there was... Star Wars has always been built upon retcons. Always. It's always been built upon retcons. Sorry about that noise. So... but I just wanted to make that point to agree with you that was before the Chosen One prophecy had happened. And by that time, George had probably completely forgotten about Dark Empire.
Well, I don't know if he forgot about it, but he chose what he wanted to ignore and what he wanted to incorporate.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. Listen, for the prequels, he took a lot from the expanded universe, whether you're talking about characters, whether you're talking about the names of planets like Coruscant,
which was, yeah.
You talk about the 501st, like he took a ton, especially from the West End games. All those rule books, all the ships, the vehicles, tons of it was pulled from the expanded universe that George wanted to utilize. All these things that people had made for Star Wars that he brought into the prequels.
Yeah, he did kind of what Disney did, where he picked and chose what he wanted. That's what it sounds like to me,
Yeah, to some extent, but that was kind of his, that was his baby to do with, and he was the one who approved all of these things initially. Everything. It's not to say he read every page of every novel, but the overarching story, he was in charge of. He could veto it, and in fact, you talked about Kylo Ren being a ripoff of Jason Solo. That entire Yuzong Vong War, a 19-book saga. That takes place around 25 years after the original Battle of Yavin. George Lucas had a big hand in that. He made them be Yuzong Vong extragalactic. He wouldn't allow dark side force users. He vetoed dark side force users. They wanted Anakin Solo to be the hero of that. But no, George Lucas denied that. He didn't want that to happen. He instead wanted to be Jason Solo and wanted them to kill off Anakin Solo. So he had a big hand in crafting some of these stories. And there's an interview with him saying that he was going to incorporate some of those things when talking about his sequel trilogy, which has probably changed a million times because it's George.
Right.
But for me, I get really frustrated whenever they use the expanded universe ideas that they threw in the trash and bastardize them and make it shitty. That pisses me off to no end.
I was just curious about what you thought about that. So is there anything that you appreciate about the film now that you didn't back then, whether it be even little things like performances or music? Is there anything, that's what I was kind of curious about, is there anything that's changed for you in the positive? Because for me, I'll just say that it hasn't changed too much, but I feel like I feel bad because the actors really did try, dude, and the people who made the film, like the set cinematographers, they really did try. They did their best, but there's just no story there, man. And to me, a movie does not work without a story, especially not an epic, what do they call it, a space opera. You gotta have a story there, bro. But what do you think? Was there anything that kind of sticks out to you now, like that you appreciate more?
I'll tell you one thing that I felt good about kind of the whole time is really the only moment that I feel good watching that film is when Billy D shows up. Like when Lando, you knew it was him because we heard it from the leaks. But when he takes off that helmet, you just can't help but smile. Even with everything that Disney Star Wars has done to kill the characters that we loved, whether it be Han, whether it be Luke, when you saw Billy D and you heard him talk and you saw his smile, I kind of felt something. I just felt that nostalgia. And as stupid as it is for him to be laughing like a maniac as they're flying the Millennium Falcon into this fight, like I do think that the couple moments with Billy D. Williams as Lando do stick out. And it's a shame that in retrospect, it wouldn't have done anything because this trilogy's crap. They didn't have any plans, but it's a shame they didn't get him involved sooner, dude, to be honest with you.
And when he talks about going on adventures with Luke, I'm like, can we get that movie? Can I see that instead? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to see Luke and Lando like traveling the universe. That sounds like a good idea. And then speaking of artificial, dude, the scene with freaking with Wedge, bro, like good flying, Lando. Like, dude, I didn't even recognize him the first time. Like, I really didn't. It was like the second time I was like, oh, there's Wedge. Like, it was so like, hey, everyone, look, it's Wedge Antilles. Remember him? He was a hero and helped blow up the Death Star 2 times and this and that. And it's just so, like, let's cram things in. And then, like, the scene where, in that same sequence, that final battle, which was a huge letdown, dude. Like, the scene where Zori Bliss shows up and freaking, Poe Dameron's like, Zori! And I'm just like, great. A character that we just met. We just met that character an hour ago. We don't give a fuck about her. We don't care. Dude, we so don't care about Zori Bliss or the other chick. What's her name? The one that was Finn's.
Jana.
Yeah, nobody cares about them, dude. Like, we didn't get enough time to care. Like, Jana got, like, what? Total of, like, 8 minutes of screen time in the whole film. Like, dude, we just don't care. Like, I would have rather... I would have rather it been Rose, honestly.
You talked about artificial, like from the start of this movie, when like Poe lands and the Millennium Falcon's messed up, and Daisy Ridley's just like, "Ugh, I can't believe you messed up my ship," even though they barely survived and got back all this information they needed. They try to make it seem like these characters care about each other when it's like the first time they've ever actually met on screen.
And the actors like did the best they could because the actors do have chemistry. They actually have a lot of chemistry. So, and the scenes where they're like in that cave and shit, I really enjoyed their chemistry, right? But you're right in that it felt very, very forced. No pun intended. Like we should have felt that chemistry in like the first movie. Like if Force Awakens had shown them together, like we saw Han, Luke, and Leia on the Death Star, the whole breaking out the princess thing. If they had done that in the first movie, then I think it would have been more effective. But they waited until the end. When we're like, okay.
You know why we didn't see it? You know why we didn't see it in the first movie is because Poe wasn't supposed to survive.
Right.
Poe was supposed to die in that crash.
And then Oscar Isaac was like, please don't kill me or whatever, right?
Yeah, he's like, JJ, listen, I get killed off in every movie. Can you please not kill me? And JJ's like, okay, I guess we'll find something for you. Like, that is why Finn has his jacket. There's zero way you can convince me that Poe Dameron survived that. Finn wakes up and he looks, he literally, like, it's just open space everywhere around. You're telling me that Poe Dameron had to have been flung like 500 to 1,000 meters away from this wreckage and somehow survived. It's stupid because he wasn't supposed to survive, but they crammed him in there. And I think the entire problem with the sequels is from day one, there was no plan. They wanted to get it out as quick as possible to make money. There was never a plan. Daisy Ridley talked about it in that interview where she said, yeah, I was going to be a Kenobi. Then they were toying with something else. And then it
was nobody for
I really
a while.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Like it's a travesty that this happened. And that's why as much as I dislike a lot of the things that Rian Johnson has said on Twitter, on social media, I think he's a dick. It's not like Last Jedi. What happened in The Last Jedi ultimately falls on Kathleen Kennedy and everyone at Lucasfilm, and the fact that there was never a succinct plan. They let him do what he wanted to do. So you can't be like, well, Ryan, how dare you not do this? They let him do whatever he wanted.
Not to mention
there was also no guidance.
It was also very reactionary because it was a reaction to Force Awakens, but then Rise of Skywalker tried to cover up everything Ryan did, and that was the big issue, is that they were like reacting to fan backlash, and it's like that's a problem with, I think, media overall nowadays, is that I think too many and this is all about the corporate problem. This is the issue with corporations owning properties, is that it's no longer about the story. It's no longer about the story and the characters, which is what George Lucas, at the very least, whether you like or hate the prequels, he had a story he wanted to tell, and he told them a goddamn story. But I feel like with the corporations, they go online, they see people making videos trashing Last Jedi, which I was guilty of, and so were you, and everybody else, and they're like, well, we got to fix this. Okay, no, don't worry about what we have to say. And this is going to sound weird, but trust me on this one. Don't worry about what the fanboys say. What me or you or the fandom mess or anybody. Just make a good story. That's all we really want. Like, we're not criticizing women. We're not criticizing, like, you know, we're criticizing, but we're not like trashing specific plot points. I mean, we are, but we're not like telling you that you have to bring back Palpatine, or you have to keep Luke Skywalker alive, or you have to make Rey weak. No one is saying that. Just tell a fucking story. That's it. Just tell us a good story and keep it Star Wars. Keep it the hero's journey. You know, because Rey, the whole Mary Sue thing, they tried to make her vulnerable in this film during her fight with Kylo Ren, right? And Kylo's kind of whooping her ass through a lot of that fight. But it's too late. Like, it's too late. Like, it doesn't matter anymore because she never really suffered in the previous couple of movies.
Whatever happens, like Luke Skywalker dying, okay. What you have to do is you have to make it like reasonably understandable. You have to make it probable that I can understand how this happened. I can understand why Luke Skywalker decided to go off alone. You have to show that, and saying that randomly he decided he wanted to kill his nephew for no reason, that is not a good enough explanation. Now, there are ways you can tell that story. There are certainly ways that you can tell a story to explain how Luke Skywalker went from the person we saw at the end of Return of the Jedi to where he is. But it requires a lot of thought. It requires a lot of planning and a lot of setup. And it's not something they did.
Right.
They just tried to, boom, this is how it is. Aren't you shocked that he threw the lightsaber over?
And then they try to fix it in one scene in episode 9. I will say this, and I've said this before. The scene that did get me kind of emotional again was the scene where they showed Luke and Leia training, which was totally like another EU. I know you probably didn't like it, but seeing like Mark Hamill look like how he did in 83 and seeing a younger Carrie Fisher, granted it was all CGI, like I'm watching that scene and I'm like, why couldn't we have gotten that? Why couldn't that have been the sequel trilogy? You know what I mean? It's not even, I think most fans just wanted to see Luke, Han, and Leia go on one more adventure before you transition to the new characters. That's what I think most fans wanted. Very simple. And yes, they tried. Right, go ahead. You were saying.
100%. Like, that is all they wanted. Because to tell this story, it's not that hard. This is a simple thing they needed to do. Episode 7, you should have try to tell us what our heroes have been up to, how Leia helped rebuild the New Republic.
Right.
Han and Leia.
Oh no, Ryan, you got to buy a book to find that out.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to tell me everything, but you need to do some sort of explanation, right? And show me what Luke Skywalker is doing, how he has built up his new Jedi Order. Like, those are the things that people wanted to find out in episode 7. So you do this, you show your heroes, and it's a good feeling for everyone. You introduce us to these other characters that are a big part of their lives already, you know? And you understand why these people care about the heroes that you already love. You learn a little more. By the end of episode 7, maybe you kill off Han. That makes sense. Maybe Han goes out in a blaze of glory somehow. Right. And Luke Skywalker, something happens to him, and he might not die, but maybe he gets severely injured. Maybe something happens to shake his confidence. And all of a sudden, your other characters have to start taking the forefront for episode 8. and then eventually they are the ones that are victorious in episode 9.
Right.
And like, it's very simple what they needed to do, but instead they went for this very strange, we're not going to show you Luke Skywalker in Force Awakens. How the heck do you do that? The man, that is the biggest shame. They used him in the promotion for The Force Awakens, his voice.
Right, but they did. They didn't put him in the poster, which that was kind of a clue, even though, I thought it was going to be a big mystery, which it was. I mean, mystery box JJ. But the thing is too about to your point is, even if you watch the original films, the first 6, even in like, a numbered order, not release order, Obi-Wan had one more adventure in episode 4. It was like his last hurrah. He sacrificed himself on against Vader or whatever. It could have been something like that, where Luke would sacrifice himself against the more powerful Sith Lord or dark side user or whatever, and then that has to be beaten by the new hero. It's very simple to tell that story, bro. We've seen that story told a million times. Obi-Wan was the hero of the prequels, dies in episode 4. Luke could have been the hero of the original trilogy, dies in episode 7 or 8, but have him go out like a hero, not like a punk. And I thought it was like a punk the way they had him, like the way they reversed his character. But that's that's Last Jedi. With Rise of Skywalker, bro, I just feel like the movie is very depressing to watch. We're going to wrap it up now and get our final thoughts here. But I feel like the film is just very depressing to watch because watching it is sort of like a reminder of how disappointing the entire trilogy was and how... And you know what's fucked up is when you watch like the trailers to even to episode 9, like the trailers look so optimistic. Like you actually think from the trailers like this could be good. Like, especially that Force Awakens trailer with all the music. Again, that's all playing with your emotions. We're hearing the Leia theme. We're seeing Leia hugging Han in that one scene. You're like, oh my God, I can't wait to see that in theaters. You're seeing Han say it's all true. The dark side, the Jedi, and you're like, okay, this is gonna be really good. And most importantly, you're seeing visuals that remind you of your childhood. You're seeing stormtroopers and TIE fighters and X-Wings. You're not seeing Naboo craft. And you're like, oh, this is what I grew up with. And it's all done to give you that reaction, that artificial, oh, this is what I grew up with, which is exactly what Red Letter Media talks about. That's all nostalgia bait. And I think they were focusing too much on that and not enough on story. There's nothing wrong with bringing back TIE fighters and X-Wings and walkers and droids because that's Star Wars. But focus on the freaking story. And I think that was the big problem, man. I think it was all corporate. Now, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about Star Wars now? We've got Taika Waititi, who makes good movies. We've got Patty Jenkins, who also is making some good movies. I have some optimism here. I think they still did damage to the saga with episode 7, 8, and 9, but I think some of the side stories, I have some optimism here. Do you think, what is your opinion now on where they're going now in the future with like all the new TV shows and these movies? So are you optimistic or are you done with it?
It's complicated. So it's funny that just a year removed from when Bob Iger said we're slowing down with Star Wars, now, in order to make sure they save their stock, they announced 10 new Disney Plus series. You know what I mean? Since they need to. I don't think that half of those things are ever actually going to see the light of day. I think they needed to make some announcements.
You think half of that shit's not even going to happen?
I mean, think about it. 4 of these things that were announced, to my mind, we'd already heard. Like Andor one has been in production hell for forever.
Which I couldn't, dude. The Andor one I couldn't care less about.
Who cares about that?
Who cares?
And that's the one that's guaranteed to happen. That's the one they're actually the closest to coming out with.
Right.
The Obi-Wan series we've been hearing about for forever.
Years.
And then the Bad Batch we already got told that was going to come out. And then the Taika Waititi one was also announced already. But as far as overall, one of the biggest problems in Star Wars for me is the fact that, like you said, they are so reliant upon nostalgia. That is why all of these things are set in this time frame. They're between essentially the end of the prequels and 5 years after Return of the Jedi, which is Mandalorian, with the one exception being the Leslie Headland, former Harvey Weinstein assistant, Acolyte one that's set at the end of the High Republic,
right?
which is roughly close to the prequel.
Which I want to say,
I'm down for that.
Yes, I was gonna tell you, I was down for the High Republic when it first got announced, but I'm not really that invested in these books, bro. I don't want to buy any more books. I'm done with the books, okay? Like, I want to see some actual, like, content, you know, some either TV shows or movies. So I'm with you. I'm down for the Acolyte one. I still think it's going to be Revan. They're going to retcon Revan, which is going to piss you off a hell of a lot and a lot of people. But I still have a feeling it's going to be Revan, bro, if I'm being honest with you.
I hope they stay away from it. I was like, I think the High Republic is going to be a joke, especially with the writers. That's a different topic. But, you know, the High Republic was, at least when it first like came out, I thought this was going to be an opportunity for them to truly do something alone, like not relying on all these things, with the exception of Yoda. You knew as soon as they announced that time frame, like, okay, Yoda's obviously going to be a part of this,
right?
Which could bring in some continuity errors, but you know, that's Disney, so who cares,
right?
But at least it is something that is different. It's set apart.
Yeah, it's new. Right now, it's new Jedi, new characters, new ships. It's going to have a different aesthetic. I agree with you. Everything you're saying, but it just seems pretty boring so far, if I'm being honest with you.
The problem, and even with the Mandalorian episode, they're making the galaxy so fucking small. Everybody interacts with everybody else that's ever been important. They're cramming all of these events into this like 10-year time period. And you're talking to people that the story group is already a mess. They can't keep continuity straight. They can't keep canon straight. But I don't know how much they actually care about it. I feel like they are more invested in getting these moments, getting these announcements that Hayden Christensen's back as Anakin. Yep. Don't you want to see that? And getting people to clap like seals. And to me, I'm not super hopeful for it. Patty, listen, I really liked Wonder Woman.
Right.
Can you name something else that Patty Jenkins has done?
Well, she is. Me
neither.
But she's good. She is good. She's good at that, at least. And she seems she seems like with Snyder, bro. She seems like a very genuine. Like when she made that promo about her dad being a former naval officer. Like I think she'll make a good movie, bro. I trust her.
You know, Rogue Squadron is one of my absolute favorite book series. And one of the most disappointing things for me was the author, Michael A. Stackpool, who essentially created and defined Star Wars space combat, all of the rules, all of the mechanics behind it, all of these things. I saw him in the comments of that. He's like, wow, what a surprise. And people are like, they didn't talk to you about this? He's like, no, I'm sure they know I exist. And if they want to reach out, I'm more than willing to help.
I didn't even know that they will. I had no idea they didn't even talk to him, bro. That's crazy. Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe she'll talk to him before the movie comes out. We gotta give her the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, we got a long time until then. She's obviously busy. So I hope they do, because that's one thing. They're taking these stories and bastardizing them and not bringing the people who made them truly great. The reason that there is a Rogue Squadron movie is because of those Michael Stackpole books. Yep. Bottom line.
And the video game.
Like that is,
and the video game.
Yeah, and the video game. Yeah. And the video game is because of those books too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're not giving due credit. You're not talking to the experts. To me, that is the biggest failure of Disney. They take these ideas, let somebody else run with it, and so they're not even paying some of their authors in some circumstances.
At least they brought back Timothy Zahn, bro. Like I got to give them credit for that. You know, at least they did that.
You know about Timothy Zahn. Speaking of that, when Ahsoka name dropped Thrawn, Timothy Zahn responded. He's like, "Well, I had a lot of people reach out to me, and to be honest, this was a surprise. I had no idea. Idea they were going to be doing anything with Thrawn. This is a guy who's actively writing Thrawn books for Disney Star Wars right now.
Yeah, we're going to use him again. Don't kill him off, Timothy. We need."
Or you at least work something in, like work references.
Oh, but
in.
But Ryan, don't worry. If they kill him off, they'll bring him back somehow. He jettisoned an escape pod right before the explosion of the Star Destroyer. He'll be all right. Fuck you.
That's the thing, man. It's the story group doesn't work together. The writers don't work together. They don't really care about continuity. All they care about is in the moment. Disney is all about how people feel, how their investors feel, all of this stuff. And the sequel trilogy, just to kind of wrap it up, was a failure. And that is why they're staying away from that.
Yeah, creatively it was. No, and you're right. And I'm guessing whenever they do episode 10, it'll be like way in the future, bro. I'm guessing like Rey will be dead and this will all be a big memory. That's all. I'm guessing that. I could be wrong.
I think, here's some. I think that we will see a rebooted Star Wars in general, like a redoing of the original trilogy before we see an episode 10.
You might be right, and that's going to be a big problem, bro, for a lot of people. Honestly, I mean,
Yeah,
I thought about
They're gonna
that
wait
too.
till George. They're gonna wait till George is dead, I think, and then they're gonna reboot it. And depending on who's in charge of it at the time, you think the fights we're having now about Star Wars, about agendas and things like that, you think they're bad now? Just wait until they do things, and whether it's gender swaps, race swaps, whatever in the original trilogy, people are gonna freak out.
Or not even just that. That's only part of it. Just desecrating the characters' legacies and the actors'
Yeah.
legacies. Like there's just certain, but everything gets rebooted. So that's why I think that you're probably likely correct. Even though Star Wars is one of the things that should not be rebooted. They should just do their own thing, bro. Just set a new Star Wars story like 2,000 years before the Old Republic or something. Just do that, you know. Just stay away from everything, you know. Like you said, the galaxy's so small. When the galaxy should be a lot bigger. There should be battles going on that we don't even know about. Like that's what should be going on. It's it's not an Earth. It's the galaxy, dude. There should be shit going on that doesn't even affect like the Republic, and we're not even getting that. So
think of all the people the Mandalorian has ran into just this season. Like when you think about that, the idea of all these important people that he's just happening upon, that's when I roll my eyes. I'm like, Disney Star Wars is so simple right now. But they need to just separate themselves from the OT, do something to stand alone. I know you're not the biggest fan of Zack Snyder movies in general,
right.
but imagine a Zack Snyder style. Think of the opening 20 minutes of Man of Steel, that kind of combat, like everything they had going on Krypton.
Right.
Think of that, but in the Old Republic, Mandalorian versus Jedi Wars, something like that.
That would be. I think we're gonna get that at some point. I think we are gonna get that someday.
Like I really that. Do. Listen, that doesn't have the name Skywalker. It doesn't have the name Palpatine. Doesn't have any of that shit. But that is something they could do that I think would be so easy to get a lot of people on board. It could be badass. I don't want them to do it because I want them to come with their own fucking shit. But they're gonna bastardize Old Republic at some point. I know they will.
Of course.
But those are the things that I think Disney needs to be doing instead of being, because then you do have to focus on the story and building your own shit instead of just the nostalgia bait, because I am over it. It doesn't do anything for me anymore. And the more you use it, you will have diminishing returns.
Always.
Just like we saw with the sequel trilogy.
Every time. All right. Well, go ahead and plug your channel, bro, or anything else you want to plug, man. And thank you so much for spending some time with me today. We did an hour, which I was not expecting. I was expecting 20 minutes and we did an hour, but that's how it is with Star Wars. But go ahead and plug whatever you want. I'm guessing your channel or anything else you're working on.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Well, I'm Ryan Kinnell, RK Outpost. I talk about Star Wars. I talk about comics, talk about video games, and then just anything in pop or entertainment culture that I find interesting. I also do a lot of stuff for geeks and gamers on the main channel. I do a channel called Sports Wars there as well. So yeah, just check me out. I really appreciate you having me on, man. I've been a fan of yours for a while, so it's cool to be on here talking Star Wars with you.
No, and I'll definitely have you back because I like talking to you about this because you have opinions and they're good opinions and you think things through. So yeah, and thanks everybody. Let us know in the comments, like we talked about. Is there anything about Rise of Skywalker or even the entire trilogy that you find worse or better now that it's been a year removed from it? And it's just sad. It's just sad because I have been dreaming about a sequel trilogy since I was a little kid, dude. I remember building my own Legos of like Star Wars ships. Like, you're a kid, whatever, you do stuff like this. And I remember like fantasizing about Luke, Han, and Leia going to like these new planets. Every kid wrote their own version of the sequel trilogy. And them having, and then, eventually I ran into like Dark Empire and like the Zahn book. Oh, okay, this is good shit, Anakin Solo, which all that stuff, bro, all that stuff, and then Luke and that whole thing, and then what we got was something that was just not up to par. It didn't have to be exactly that. I don't think anybody was asking for a remake or an exact shot for shot redo of Dark Empire, but at least something that I think would continue Star Wars to make it interesting, and it just was just a bunch of crap and it was corporate. So
I think that I think that what they should have done, the last real EU story takes place about 45 years after A New Hope in like the timeline. That's the last one they had. Then you had free reign to do anything.
Right.
And then Force Awakens came out, what, like 38 years or so after A New Hope. So the ages line up. What you should have done is taken all that had come before it, all that continuity, all that lore, do a story after that. And you would have been set.
Like
You
start
would have been
with brand new characters to everything. Then you're saying, yeah, just right.
Yeah, start with, Luke, Han, and Leia, your trio, in the same way we talked about, and just takes place after that story. So you have all of that backstory, and then you can still create these new characters. I would probably use, Jaina Solo and maybe Jag Fell and some of these other heroes that you already have, Ben Skywalker.
Right.
But tell your own story, because they had free reign to do whatever they wanted. Instead, they destroyed it all and gave us something that had no passion or heart.
Yeah, I just feel like I've outlined the reasons to why they did what they did, and I agree with it at the time. But now looking back on it, I wish the product was just better, is what it is. Just something good is what people want. So that's it. Thanks again. We'll talk to y'all next time.